This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Now, it's been almost 6 months since these two cameras were released. This is the DJI Action 3 as well as the GoPro Hero 11. And since their release, they've both had firmware updates to not only add some additional features to them, also to get rid of some of the bugs. So in this video, I just want to talk to you about some of those main features that I look for in these cameras. And if you guys are familiar with my channel, I use action cameras for pretty much everything. I document a lot of stuff I do as far as behind the scenes, a lot of stuff with my family. So for me, these are pretty much all-purpose type of cameras. And to get started, the number one feature I look for is user experience. And when it comes down to user experience, I'm gonna give that to the DJI Action 3. When you use these cameras side by side, you can definitely start seeing the difference as far as how much time you start saving when you're using something like the Action 3. The first thing is the fast start. So if you hit record and when the cameras are both off, the Action 3 does edge out the GoPro just a little bit as far as speed to turn on. Next, we'll talk about the front screen. Now, we do have front screens on both of them. The one thing that the DJI does have is this is actually a touchscreen. So if you wanted to change your settings while you're doing something like vlogging, this is still something that GoPro has not implemented on any of their cameras. Even though we are on version 11, they still do not have a front touchscreen. Next feature I really like is the quick switch. This is something that they had on the Action 1. They removed it on the Action 2 and brought it back here on the Action 3. This quick switch button on the side allows you to switch through different settings that you save onto your camera. So for me, I like using this because I will normally shoot a lot of my footage in 4K 30 or 4K 60, as well as I want to be able to slow that footage down to 4K 120. I'm able to set all three of those different profiles on the camera, and when I want to switch through each one of them, I just have to press that button here on the side. Now, GoPro kind of has something similar to it. You have to do a 2-button press and it'll go through the menu, but it's just not, like I said, not as easy as it is on the Action 3. Another feature that the Action 3 has over the GoPro is that when you hit record on both cameras, so if I hit record right there, and now they are both recording. Now the thing is, if I stop recording, if I hit stop on the GoPro, it will automatically shut off. It has that power shut off. I'm not able to cancel that shut off. There's a lot of times where I'm out there shooting, I will shoot, it'll record, and then I'll stop shooting. Maybe I want to change my setting on here, but the thing is, it'll automatically power off. It doesn't give you that ability to cancel that shut off, which means if I want to shoot again, I either have to hit record again or power it back on. Here on the DJI Action 3, if I were to hit record and then I were to stop recording, it now gives me 3 seconds to tap the screen and it cancels that shutdown. The next thing I really like as far as user experience goes is their magnetic system. This magnet system makes it super easy to go from something like this. If I want to use a small tripod with a little handle, I'm able to do that. If I want to switch over to a larger stick, just like this, I'm able to do that. If I want to bring my camera off here, throw it onto something like my helmet, throw it onto a bike mount, throw it onto my chesty. Now when it comes to the GoPro system, you do have that 2-prong screw mount here at the bottom. So if you wanted to switch it out, you have to unscrew it every single time. So if I went from a tripod, I'd have to unscrew it here, then put it onto my next mount, have to screw it back there. And the next comparison we'll talk about is video quality. And when it comes down to video quality, I'm giving the edge over to the GoPro. Now, as far as video resolution, the GoPro Hero 11 can shoot at 5.3K up to 60 frames a second. Here on the DJI Action 3, we are capped off at 4K, 60 frames a second in standard mode. And then if you wanted to go slow motion, 4K 120. They actually both can shoot 4K 120. And when it comes to just side-by-side video quality, I will edge that out just a little bit to GoPro. There's definitely a lot of times when in bright daylights, the GoPro will have a little bit more detail. I saw that a lot more when I was bringing these out there snowboarding, and when I saw the footage side-by-side with the GoPro, you're able to see a little bit more detail in the snow. Now, when it came down to shooting later in the afternoon, what was interesting is that in low light, the Action seemed to render it a little bit better than the GoPro. Now, the one thing that the GoPro does have over the Action 3, and like I talked about it earlier, it does have that 8:7 aspect ratio. With the ability to shoot more, I would say, of that square type of footage, it does give you some options in post-processing if you wanted to export out your video in a wide format, or if you wanted to crop it into a vertical format. You are able to do that a little bit easier with that aspect ratio. Now, if you want to shoot in vertical format, DJI does include this case. So what you do is you put the camera inside of the case and then you're able to now shoot in horizontal, just like that. Or if you wanted to shoot in vertical mode, you're able to just pop that on with the magnet, use the case, and now you can frame yourself in vertical mode. And before we get into our next feature, which is battery life, a quick word from today's sponsor, Squarespace. And for those aren't familiar with Squarespace, Squarespace is an all-in-one platform for you to create your online presence for your business or your personal brand. Now, when I first started FlytPath, I actually used Squarespace to create my website, which I still use today. And being a designer, the one thing that attracted me to Squarespace was their design templates. The content management system is super easy for you to upload your photos, upload your galleries, as well as for me, when my business started growing and I had some physical products, it was really easy for me to set up an e-commerce store on my website for me to sell my flight cases. And even though there's a lot of social media platforms out there for you to get out your work, there's nothing better than having a foundational website for your brand or your business. So if you guys are interested in getting your website up, make sure you guys use those links down below. Squarespace is offering my viewers a free trial as well as 10% off your very first purchase. And now let's talk about the battery life. The GoPro has a 1720 milliamp battery and the DJI Action 3 has a 1770 milliamp battery. But when you are out there shooting, and when I was testing out these cameras for the past few weeks, the DJI Action 3 would outlast the GoPro battery every single time. When I was out there snowboarding, I was constantly looking at the battery. I think at one point the Action 3 had about 50% left, and then the GoPro was already in the mid 30s. So as far as battery life, that will go to the Action 3. Next feature I think is extremely important, and that is image stabilization. Now, as far as keeping your camera and that footage nice and steady, I will put these cameras pretty much head to head. They are very, very similar as far as what you're gonna get out of camera with the image stabilization that's built in. The GoPro uses what they call hyper smooth stabilization, and the DJI Action 3, they use what they call rock steady. Now, Action 3 did include a new firmware update that adds Rock Steady Plus, which gives you a little bit more stabilization than Rock Steady, but it does punch into your video just a little bit more. The one thing I did notice though is that with the Action 3, even though the field of view is very similar on both cameras, I feel like the Action 3 does have an edge as far as being a little bit wider. Now, some people might not like that wider field of view, but if you are doing action sports, you want to be able to capture as much in the frame as you possibly can. I was using the ultra wide on the Action 3 versus the hyper view on the GoPro. The one thing that I saw when I was using the widest field of view is that there was a lot more distortion on the GoPro when you go towards the edges of the frame. When I put the footage side by side, you can see the difference there. With the Action 3, there's less distortion as far as the edge versus the GoPro. Next feature we'll talk about is sound quality. They're all pretty usable if you're close to the camera. Little audio test, testing 1, 2, 3, 4. How does the audio sound? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. How does the audio sound? This is the GoPro Hero 11. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the Action 3. How does the audio sound? It's pretty loud up here actually because I'm right next to the lift, so you'll be able to hear all the engine and all the motors going. So how does the audio sound? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4. How does the audio sound on these two cameras right here? Now for me, I like to use external audio, and my choice has been the DJI mic. And what's great about that, of course, is that it integrates really well with the Action 3. All you do is pop off the door here on the side, plug in your receiver, and there you go. Now you have external audio that you talk into this transmitter here, put this onto your body, put this onto the talent, and now you're able to have crispy audio directly into the camera with a system like this. All right, so here's a little audio test, and the DJI Action 3 is about 2 feet away from my mouth. So this is the audio coming directly from the DJI Action 3. How does the audio sound? Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I'm going to be plugging in the DJI mic, which is actually hooked up here to a lavalier to the transmitter. Let's see how the audio sounds. All right, so now we have the DJI mic hooked up to the Action 3, testing 1, 2, 3, 4, testing 1, 2, 3, 4. How does the audio sound? It's actually hooked up with the DJI mic to this lav and then also to the transmitter. So how much better or worse? I'm assuming it's gonna be a lot better. How does the audio sound compared to the audio that's just coming directly out of the Action 3? Or if you wanted to use something like this, just an external microphone, you're of course gonna need a tripod with a cold shoe mount, but you're able to then plug in via USB to the 3.5. I believe I got this generic adapter. This is a USB-C to 3.5 adapter off of Amazon. Plug it in here, plug this into the side of your Action 3, And there you go. Now you're able to have external audio with something like this type of microphone. Now, if you want to do something similar with the GoPro, you're going to have to buy the GoPro mod, which is specifically made for the GoPro itself. And that is something you have to purchase to add on to the GoPro in order for you to hook up external microphones like this. With the Action, you plug in directly with USB-C. With the GoPro, you have to buy their mod first, and then you're able to use some of the other accessories. Now, as far as price of these cameras, the GoPro comes in at $499, while the DJI Action 3 comes in at $329. Now, the one thing that's interesting about the GoPro purchase is that if you do buy it from like a third-party company, not from GoPro's website, it'll pretty much be retail or full price. But if you do buy it from GoPro's website, they do offer a discount if you sign up for their subscription model. With that subscription model, you do have some benefits as far as cloud storage and some discounts. However, you are opting into the subscription model, which means it'll renew every year for another $50. So when it does come down to price, as far as affordability goes, the Action 3 still will edge that out. Even with the subscription model, the Action 3 is a little bit more affordable. Now, when the Action 3 first released, I know a lot of people were having some focus issues with their cameras. Now, when I first reviewed the camera, I didn't really notice it too much because when I would normally film, I'm filming something away from me, or if I'm vlogging, I'll normally have it on something like this. I'll normally have it on a stick, and it'll be kind of out there a little bit further away. So I wasn't noticing that much of a focus issue when I first got the camera. Now, as far as focus distance compared to the GoPro, I do think that the GoPro is a little bit sharper at closer distances. So if you had to keep the camera closer to the subject, I do think that the GoPro is able to focus it a little bit better than the Action 3. Now, with all that said, which one am I grabbing when I have to grab an action camera? I am still grabbing the Action 3, mainly because of the reason number one. User experience for me is a very big deal. For me, I'm always switching my settings. So if I'm gonna be out there shooting a lot of content, I wanna be able to easily be able to go in and out of different profiles, different settings, and not have to worry about it like I would with the GoPro. If you're the type that wants to keep your camera in just one setting or two settings, and maybe you just mount it in a specific location and direction, and you're not always fumbling with it, switching out the cameras, putting it on different mounts, then you might be well off with something like the GoPro. Now for me, I like to use my camera in so many different settings, so I love the magnetic mount here on the bottom of the Action 3. For some other people that don't use it, they just want to keep it on a stick, then something like the GoPro might just work better for them. Hopefully this video has given you a little bit of insight of my experience after using these cameras for close to 6 months now. Also, a huge thanks to our sponsor of the video, Squarespace. If you guys are looking at creating your online brand and having an online presence, make sure you guys use my link down below for a free trial as well as 10% off your first purchase. Links to these products will be down below in the video description. This is Ultra Anastasia with FlytPath.com. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.